Hey, deserving listeners, Natalia Grace documentary on Discovery and Max, and it's season 2. Let's watch.
During that time, after Florida and before the Chaccones released you, that 6-month period.
Wait, what is he saying? What period of time? What's he saying?
During that time, after Florida and before the Chaccones released you, that 6-month period.
After Florida and before the Chaccones released you. I don't know if I knew about this timeline. So they went to Florida and I think had met her, Natalia. Natalia claims that all the parents met each other, but Michael claims he never actually met the Chaccones in person. Who knows? But it sounds like there's a 6-month period in waiting to actually get all the adoption situation worked out. Is that what, am I missing something?
Something was wrong. Something was off. During that time, I had a conversation with the monster about, look, things aren't working right. Maybe this is no harm, no foul. We don't have to do anything because you legally were still theirs. Maybe we just walk away from this.
Okay, so he's saying that something was off. What was off? And he says that he was suggesting to Christine that they back out of the adoption. Okay, I could see that. I could see him thinking, well, we don't know enough information, or we're hearing a couple things that are concerning. Okay.
Cooler jets. And that was met with a very, 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 very stern no.
Why?
The deeper why.
Okay, so he's saying that Christine was adamant about getting Natalia, and the speculation that I think, it's coherent. It's hard to know because it would be hard to demonstrate this with any sort of facts, but that Christine, was determined to find the most disadvantaged child to adopt so that she could wave her magic wand. And I haven't said this out loud, but I think that if all of that is true, which is, just speculation upon speculation, then that does point towards narcissism potentially, because the narcissistic individual will believe their own bullshit. They'll believe they can do anything. They need to believe that they can do not anything, but wherever their narcissistic supply is coming from, they will lean into, because it's finally getting them the validation, or at least pseudo-validation, that they desperately wanted since they were born and never really got. So it's possible that because randomly one of her sons, and she might have had a hand, she probably did, in at least being a good enough parent so that Jacob could succeed in academics. She probably was instrumental, and since it appears she is the primary parent, she probably was fairly instrumental, but there wasn't anything magical about her parenting. It was his own work, Jacob, and maybe his neurodivergence that helped him in some way so that he achieved that. And it was independent of her. And a lot of parents would have had a similar result, if not better, But she, because, this is all speculative, but she needs it to be true, because it's like, oh, I'm worth something now, and I need to lean into that. I write this book. It's not about my son. It's about me, the spark that I did, And then all the interviews, I'm going to go there. I'm going to be in the interviews. I'm this wonderful person. I'm the best. Well, what better way for me to demonstrate that than to do it again, but to do it with someone that is so disadvantaged in my head that it would be undoubtable that I have this magical power, and then believing that, right? Believing that it will work because I'm awesome. That's just a fact. Now, meanwhile, underneath all of that with narcissistic people is a much louder voice, just a whole ocean of low self-esteem, or even no self-esteem, just like no sense of who they are as a human being, because they were denied that sort of attunement reaction from their caregivers growing up. So it's not like their entire person is believing any of these things. It could be argued that a tiny portion of them is desperately holding on to this idea that they're at least worth it, if not perfect. So I guess, it's interesting. It's a fascinating case.
She saw the adoption, especially the adoption of somebody with special needs, as a societal thing. The one thing we can always count on is evil sure does love her some attention and some cameras and some eyes on her.
Yeah. And this is in line with a similar problem with individuals called Munchausen or Munchausen by proxy, and it's also called factitious disorder imposed on another, which I haven't been using that term because, I don't know, I'm old, so I still use the old term. But if you want a full deep dive, I did a whole deep dive when I watched the Gypsy Rose documentary when it first came out years ago. And it's similar to that, where you have an individual that is so desperate for attention, usually because of trauma. It doesn't justify it, but they need it so badly. Because, as a parent, a healthy parent with, a low amount of relational traumas in their life, they want to be recognized as a good parent. That's normal. That's okay. They want to be appreciated by at least their partner. Maybe even the occasional teacher says, "You got a great kid on your hands." It feels good. There's nothing wrong with that. Being a parent isn't 100% selfless. It'd be weird if it was. So, there's some hope there, and maybe even a little bit of fishing for that at times, and that's okay. But if you have no self-esteem and you're on a constant treadmill running away from the traumas, you need a lot of it. And one of the ways to do that is through Munchausen by proxy, by poisoning your child and creating all these problems so that you can be held up as this wonderful parent who is taking care and nursing a child, where other parents would have just rejected this kid or whatever. And that seems to be the motivation for many with Munchausen by proxy. And then I guess we don't have a word for it. I guess you could call it Munchausen adjacent or something, where an individual would want to adopt a child that had a lot of disadvantages, and they wanted to Instagram it and write books about it and have people say what a wonderful human being you are. It wouldn't be hard to speculate about some people on YouTube or Instagram around this. I talked about Mika Stauffer, and I don't know the full story on that, of course, but at least that was the allegation. And so that is interesting. I think that's what he's getting at.
And people worshiping her. She wrote out a full one-page piece of paper once, explaining to me why she qualifies for sainthood based on the 2 miracles she's performed. That's who we're dealing with.
Wait, so he could be lying. Everyone could be lying. But if we at least entertain this, he's saying that she had written, let's rewind.
She wrote out a full one-page piece of paper once, explaining to me why she qualifies for sainthood based on the 2 miracles she's performed.
So who knows what that piece of paper was, because he could be spinning it right now. It could have been a piece of paper that she wrote. They were going back and forth, arguing with each other, and she's like, "Look, you got to recognize that I am a good person because da 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 da." It's a different spin, but it is possible, I guess. At the very least, there's the allegation or the claim that she considered herself to be this wonderful person because of Jacob and because of Natalia. So now some people can have that need, that selfish need, and still be a good parent and still not be abusive. They might be a little into themselves and a little cold, a little not really paying attention to the child, instead paying too much attention to how things are coming across. So it's, there's a spectrum there. But given everything we've heard, we could, because it is weird, right? Like, I think I've entertained this question before. If the allegations about Christine are true, Natalia has confirmed a lot of it and added a lot. So if that's true, why would that person adopt someone, right? There's an easy way to avoid having to deal with a child that has issues or traumas. The first option on the list is just don't adopt the child. And adopting a child is so much hassle. The way they framed it in the first season, it was like lickety split. You have 24 hours to decide. But now we're hearing that there's been 6 months, which is much more common. You know, the bureaucracy and all the things that have to be worked out, it strangely takes a long ass time. So there's some other reason. There's just be some reason as to why she would even be into it. And it sounds like she was the primary engineer of the whole thing. And so there must be some screwed up ulterior motive, which I think we could speculate as to what that is.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So I've found that most people would benefit by getting things off of their chest. With all the pressures that we're under, it just feels good to get some relief now and then, you know? It especially feels good if someone is there to listen to us, someone who really cares about us. And, you know, keeping these things bottled up can cause various problems. Along these lines, therapy can be a wonderful place to talk openly about what is plaguing us. I mean, one of the main reasons I became a therapist is because when I was 19, I wanted to get things off of my chest. I had friends and family to talk to, but I found that I wanted to talk to a third party, an objective third party, like a therapist. Well, one place you can find a therapist is BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. So get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
That's who we're dealing with. So when you're dealing with that level of narcissists, it's vaguely possible.
It's funny. 99.99% of the time, whenever I'm reacting to something on this channel and someone says narcissist or narcissism, they're not using the term in the same way that at least I and other experts would use. But in this instance, I think he is. I don't know if that's just a broken clock being right twice a day, or if he actually understands what the term means. I don't know.
That she saw the adoption as aren't I a great person, everyone? Look at me. Hey, neighbors. Look, I'm so wonderful. I'm so wonderful. I'm so charitable. She compared herself to Oprah regularly. She was going to be the Oprah for autistic kids.
That's interesting. That's believable. We don't know, but it's believable. And he has a reason to fabricate, but we could see that. And that is an interesting detail. We could imagine that. And that does point in the narcissism direction. This overblown sense of who you are and your importance and this need, like Oprah herself probably never said, I'm going to be the next, whatever, because successful people, they have a goal, but they're not grandiose typically. Some are, but I don't know what. I don't know Oprah. Maybe but I get my point is that when I meet someone and they have that kind of talk, I usually am thinking, well, maybe, but really this says something about you as a person. What do I say? There's nothing wrong with someone saying, I want to do something fantastic with my life. Like I would talk to a teenager and they would say, I want to be the next LeBron James. And I wouldn't say that they were narcissistic. So what am I saying? I'm saying when you add that in to all the other data, if we believe half or more of it, it does completely fit within the hypothesis that narcissistic personality disorder is a viable hypothesis for diagnosis, because that is something that narcissistic people will do, is they're fixated on those kinds of comparisons and on those kinds of achievements and having other people see those achievements, right? Because the thing that you would hope someone in that position would say is, well, I don't know how the world's going to see me. Maybe I'll be the next Oprah for special needs kids, whatever, it doesn't matter. But why I'm doing this is for the kids, because I want to give back to the community. So what does it matter how I'm seen? You know what I mean?
I've heard this so many times. So my assumption is the reason that she wouldn't undo where we were. All those people that were, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. Aren't I great? Aren't I great? Aren't I great? Wait, what do you mean? Where's my newly adopted daughter? Oh, hell, I gotta explain this.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So he's saying that before they even got her, she had already been bragging again, which is his word, who knows, but given other things we've heard, we can imagine that. And she didn't want to be seen. So maybe even she knew by that point that like, oh, there might be some red flags here, but I would rather go ahead with it in the short term because I don't want to have any sort of humiliation.
Did she tell you why she took me out of school?
I was told that you were a danger to the other students, that you were ramming your wheelchair into them on purpose, that you had taken your parking brake off the wheelchair and hit it, blah, blah. We don't need to get into this. This is...
What I remember is Christine telling me that she was getting a phone call at 9 o'clock every single day.
Yeah, I think a lot of things can be true here. It could be that she was homeschooled by Christine because Christine wanted to manage image by isolating Natalia from the world, because if Natalia is out there in the world, people can talk about Natalia. So there's that motivation. There's also it also could be true that the family was getting called by the school frequently about Natalia's behavior. I mean, it's rough for any kid, but if you're from another country, you are in a wheelchair, you have trauma issues that lead to some behaviors, maybe aggressive behaviors. When someone is bothering you, you don't use your words to work it out. It's pretty normal. And given one's history, you can imagine, given her history, you can imagine that being extra. It would be weird if it wasn't present, honestly.
So during this parent-teacher conference, were there any complaints made of wheelchair incidents?
Yes, the teacher stated that Natalia had hit children with the wheelchair.
She never once did. That is 1,010% false.
Oh, so we are going to talk to the teacher. That's amazing. So that is 1,010% false. Wow. What?
Her behavior was nothing but extraordinary.
Did she ever cause you any problems?
Oh my gosh, no. She was a delight.
Yeah, and then I'm thinking, well, maybe one of the teachers, but what about others? And then you're talking to the principal. Wow, I'm getting chills, because if that's not true, then maybe the entire fucking thing is made up. Wow. That is shocking. That is shocking. I mean, there's a chance that the teachers don't remember. It was a while ago, but they sound pretty sure of themselves. And maybe they would worry that they're going to get canceled if they're on the wrong side of this documentary. I'm just trying to figure this out. But it's absolutely possible that Natalia was an exceptionally good kid in school, which would really throw everything into question, because when you have kids with conduct disorder or burgeoning antisocial or defiance, one of the things that we would look at very closely is, does that child do those behaviors in all contexts? Because if there's something wrong with the child, that wrongness follows them everywhere they go. Whereas if you only see the concerning behavior in one context, it could be something about that context that's exacerbating something or even creating it. So for example, if you have a kid who is, you have teachers that are claiming that the kid has ADHD and very distractible, but then when I evaluate the child in my office and they're not distractible, then what does that say? What it says is that the child doesn't have a condition that's causing their distractibleness. There's something about school. There's something about the environment. And so we want to look at that, right? Similar to differences in behavior between school and home. So if at school but it's also hard to know how long she was there, because other adoptive parents would say that she was wonderful too, but it's possible that Natalia's first few months with the Barnetts was also wonderful. That's not, and then her issues started to emerge. That's almost universally the case in these situations, because I don't know about Natalia, but for people that have those kind of traumas that result in them acting out and being aggressive or even Machiavellian and harmful, they know enough to exert a lot of control over their behavior at first so that they don't get in trouble or they don't get rejected, right? And then once they feel a little more safe, they start to relax those controls, because it's impossible to keep that up forever. And then those behaviors start to come out. So, I guess I would really want to know how long. If it was only a few weeks, that's one thing, but if it was a full year, that's a different thing. I mean, it is data.
My teacher said that she never had to call Christine.
Oh, but right. At the very least, we're hearing that the teacher never told Christine that information. And wow, just that we have an example of just flat out big time lying, right? Wow.
That I didn't do what Christine was claiming that I did. Nothing.
And then why would she pull her out of school, right? Then you have to think, well, it can't be for any good reason. It must be because of something nefarious, right? Because if she's doing well in school, why? Take it from any parent that had kids in grade school during the pandemic. Homeschooling a kid is not fun. Now, maybe some parents enjoyed it, but as soon as the schools opened up, there weren't a lot of parents that said, no, I want my kid to stay home with me all day. Not that kids aren't wonderful, they are, but, trying to teach a kid at home while they're, they have all their distractions and there's no kind of group think, there's something beneficial to having a bunch of kids together that are all doing the same thing, right? There's a pressure to go along with the program. So why the homeschool?
Nothing.
Nobody did any of the things she accused everyone of doing.
Did you confront Natalia about hitting people with a wheelchair?
Yes, Natalia stated, I want to hurt the other kids.
Oh, and then the coaching by Christine to make Natalia say, yes, I did those things. The pepper spray and all that horribleness. I mean, when we hear this scenario, which we could believe, it sort of moves the needle a little bit for me with Michael and how responsible he was, right? Because if he's hearing a lot of this stuff and then hears it from Natalia, then, you could imagine that being very concerning to you, and drastic action might be justified. It doesn't exonerate him by any means. At this point, I'm more like he's 60% responsible.
When Natalia lived with the Chacones, she was homeschooled. So at every stop that Natalia's been, there are all these reports about her aberrant behavior.
Now, there's another possibility that Michael was completely on board with the whole thing. He might have that need for that narcissistic supply as well, of being seen as a saint. And he might have been completely on board with, let's get her out of the schools. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.